Hello, everybody, and welcome to our Optimizing the Life Cycle of Your Project webinar today, an introduction to PASconcepts. We are very excited to have Matt here with us today to give us this presentation. My name is Alan Biermacher, and I am the Customer Success Manager here at Digital Drafting Systems. And let's go ahead and get some logistics out of the way here so we can go ahead and get started. So Matt, perfect, thank you so much. So just some important announcements for everybody. All attendee lines will be muted for the presentation. As the presentation goes on, if you have a question that comes up, please go ahead and send us that question through the chat box or the questions box. And please note that this webcast will be recorded and it will be both emailed out to you if you register for this webinar. So even if you're not able to stay till the end for any reason, you will still receive the recording, and it'll actually be on our YouTube channel as well later on today, if not tomorrow. Any questions, concerns, anything like that, as always, please give us a call here at the office, 305-445-6480, or shoot us an email at info@ddscad.com. And all right, so without further ado, I'm going to have Matt go ahead and take it away.
Well, awesome. Thank you so much, Alan. Hi, everyone. My name is Matthew Murr. I'm the CEO of Access. You guys aren't here to hear about me, but I will tell you a little bit about myself. For a number of years in Chicago, I was a business consultant with the Illinois Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. After that, I returned to South Florida, where I wanted to take that business knowledge and apply it to a sector that I've always found fascinating, which was tech. It was around that time when I sort of got mixed up with the whole Access crew and PASconcept, and I'll tell you guys a little bit about that now. So PASconcept is a piece of software that allows you to cover the entire life cycle of your project and manage and basically organize in an efficient and effective manner your company. Now, the idea, or rather PASconcept as a system, has been around since about 2011. It was birthed of the need of the principal of an engineering company who was at the time, probably much like many of you, working off of Microsoft Word documents, Excel documents, other pieces of software that were floating around that he was utilizing, and he knew there had to be a better way. From that came the first iteration of PASconcept. There have been many iterations of PASconcept over the years. And about 5 years ago, a decision was made to, rather than keep the program verticalized for one company, to bring it to a larger audience. We knew that there were other people who could benefit from a software like PASconcept. For a couple of years, what we did to prove this theory was shadow a number of companies, of architectural and engineering companies, as well as some offshoots like surveying companies and inspection companies. During that time, we learned a lot, but perhaps the most obvious thing that we learned was that every business is unique. Every company is completely different. And I realize in this sector, having come from a business consultant background, I realized very quickly that in this sector specifically, what you had was a lot of people who were business professionals themselves that had studied and had, for the length of their career, executed a professional service. That service was, whether it was, engineering or architecture, very specified. But oftentimes these individuals didn't necessarily have a business background, which is fine. Necessity is the mother of invention, and when you're starting your company, you do what you feel is best to make that company move forward. Now, that said, oftentimes the best practices aren't necessarily utilized, but you make do. And over time, you start to acquire those best practices and you start to realize what works and what doesn't work. But even with that, as different as every company might be, we very quickly also noticed that the challenges that these companies face were all very similar. In fact, we saw three specifically being the biggest barriers for most companies. Specifically, many moving parts. We saw that many of the companies that we were shadowing had many different pieces of software that all required essentially the same information to operate. There was no communicating between these pieces of software, but for the employees interacting with them. So say something as simple as a client. You would enter your client in whatever your client management program was, and then you'd have to enter their information again in your proposal writing software, your Word document. And best case scenario, let's say that proposal was accepted. Well, then you have to take that same information and put it into your job management software, along with all the other bits of information that you had collected up until that point. And it just created a huge amount of redundancy and inefficiency. And inefficiency is time lost. And time lost, as we all know, will always affect your bottom line. Now, the other thing that we noticed is that many companies had many hands on many projects. We found this wasn't necessarily the case when the company had maybe one, two, three employees. But when you started to breach that 5 employee mark, communication started to be a little bit more labored, making sure that everyone had the appropriate information to do their job as efficiently as possible became a much larger task. Something as simple as an email with an attachment, if two different people downloaded that attachment and modified it, they'd have no way to know which was the most current or most relevant version of that document. And perhaps the most critical for companies was well, I preface this by saying that every company that we surveyed and shadowed were great at what they did. They always, their response from clients was always exceedingly high and favorable. But you'd be surprised how many of these companies just didn't have a way to track their work. Something as simple as knowing what their budget consumption was, what their true budget consumption was. Not just, oh, this employee makes $20 an hour, they spent 5 hours here, so the budget has been consumed by $100. Well, that's simply not logical math when viewed as a company. If you were an independent contractor, perhaps. But even in those cases, there is an amount of overhead, and of course, any hour put towards a project also needs to take into consideration any time put on by the administrators, generally over the course of the company. So it's a little bit more complex than simply tracking the number of hours that have gone into a project. And PASconcept makes that process very simple. But even outside of that, even outside of this very basic metric of knowing your budget consumption, simple things like, well, based on the number of proposals that I have out in the world, what does the next 3 months of my life look like? Based on my current success rate. We would ask these companies these type of questions, and oftentimes we either got the response that, well, we've got a gut feeling about this, or yeah, we can get you that information, but it might take a couple weeks. And these are, at least in our opinion, pieces of data that any principal at a company, any business owner should have at their fingertips at any given moment, because you never know when that moment might come that you need to make a critical choice. And you shouldn't have to wait a week to gather all the data to be able to make that critical choice. So that's what we try and cover with PASconcept. Now, what is PASconcept? Well, simply put, PASconcept is a web-based application. It's not unlike other websites that you go to that you enter your username and password and you're able to access information specific to you. If you've ever used your bank's website or even Facebook or Instagram, you're familiar with the process. We are a bit unique in the sector in that you don't need to download anything onto your computer. You have it available to you as long as you're on a device that has access to the internet, a browser of sorts. In addition, we also have mobile applications for both Android and iPhone, the iOS. And we cover billing management, proposal management, employee management, client management, job management, and of course, as I mentioned before, a wealth of business intelligence. Now, that's a lot, understandably. But the way that it's done within our system is exceedingly logical and easy to follow. And we do that because we focus primarily on the life cycle of a project. And what do I mean by that? Well, we define the life cycle as being the following. First and foremost, you have your client, whether that's Someone that you met at a networking event or someone that's reached out to you by email. This is just an individual. Inside PASconcept, you have the ability to enter their information from the beginning. From that point, that might mature to an opportunity. They might ask you for a proposal. And then from that point, you've got your proposal. From your proposal, you have your proposal acceptance phase. That's where you're negotiating with the client, and the client finally says, "Yes, I'll do it. Let's move forward on this project." And then from there, you've got your job and all the intricacies that go with job management, whether it's assigning time to your employees or tracking the progress of a job or even tracking the budget consumption. Then, of course, to do that, you would need your employees to enter their time, and that can be done directly into PASconcept as well, including all of the subconsultant management that you might have to do if your company uses subconsultants. And of course, perhaps everyone's favorite step, invoicing and payments. I joke. It's usually not everyone's favorite step, particularly often not the clients. But all invoicing and payments can all be done directly in PASconcept. In fact, sending invoices is made exceedingly simple. And if you have a payment portal like PayPal or Authorize.net, which allows you to pay with credit card or ACH payments or what have you, your clients can pay for those invoices directly on that invoice by simply clicking a button. Now, we're going to dive a little deeper into this, and I'm going to show you some screens as to what things look like in PASconcept. Again, we're going to have a section for questions at the end of this presentation. So please, if you do have a question, don't hesitate. Feel free to go ahead and pop it inside that chat, and I assure you we will get to it. So first and foremost, clients. Like I mentioned, PASconcept has a light CRM, which is essentially your ability to enter client information. You can even add your own notes, things that the client would never see. You're able to have multiple contacts with one client. So say, for example, you've got a company who's your client and you might be dealing with 5 or 6 different people, each one that might have different jobs associated to them. That's perfectly fine. That's something that PASconcept can absolutely easily handle. But it also gives you at a click the ability to see certain specific and important information relating to those clients. You can see a running ledger associated to that client. You can see all the opportunities that you have associated to them, the proposals, jobs. You can even view tasks or activities, as we call them in PASconcept, which include anything from phone calls to emails to meetings. With just a click, you can see everything that this client touches that's in relation to your company. Additionally, PASconcept also has a storage area. Every license comes with 100 gigabytes of storage, and with more as an option if you need it. So if your client does send you important information, you can always associate it either to the client, to the job, to the proposal. And of course, everything's just a click away. Beyond that, you also provide your clients with a very specific benefit that we have found that has dropped the number of phone calls necessary to your front desk, for example. Clients are provided with a client portal. This gives them the ability to go in and view all the invoices that you've sent them. It gives them the ability to pay those invoices directly from that area. It gives them the ability to view the jobs and any information that you feel they should be able to see in regards to those jobs. So here is an example of the client list inside PASconcept. Let me walk you through a couple of things because this will be the first time you guys see the PASconcept interface or one of the PASconcept interfaces. At the very top, you've got your menu, obviously the little PASconcept logo and your home icon. Your home is a series of dashboards that let you know where you as an employee stand. Anything you might have pending, anything you might have open is always available through your home button. In fact, it even has, for example, in this case, this employee, Matt Mers, got 7 notifications, 7 items that need his attention, and I can see that right up here. It really makes knowing what you have to do from a day-to-day very simple, very direct, and very accessible. Beyond that, you've got a series of different menu areas, and we'll be exploring some of them today. Everything that you see in front of you is just mock information for our mock company, Acme Engineering. If any of you would like to have a demo where you can sort of ask more direct questions to see how PASconcept applies to your company, please reach out to DDS-CAD. We'll be posting their information at the bottom of at the end of this webinar, so you can reach out. But we'd love to have a moment to sit and chat so I can show you how this can relate directly to your needs. But going back to this client view here, you could see the client names, the contacts within that client. Adding a client is very simple. You can even have a series of filters. Beyond that, from just this client list alone, you can see which clients have or require additional attention. As you can see here, we've got activities, and a few of them have some activities pending. Here is a secondary view of that same list. In this case, it's the client income report. Here you've aggregated for at least the previous year, as you can see with the filters at the very top. All the clients, you'll notice it's in a tree form. So if you open these up, you can see all the projects associated to those clients. But essentially, it's showing you how much you've invoiced through PASconcept, how much you've received, what the time cost has been, what the cost to your company has been for doing business with this specific client, as well as your balance and your profit margin for those clients specifically. This gives you a global view of your company, but you can drill down as specific as you'd like. In fact, here with this Townsville University client, it looks like there's one specific project. I mean, you could see the factors that played into that one specific project. Now, beyond that, you've also got the individual client profile. So when I click on any one of these clients, whether it's from the client income report or from the client list, it takes me to my client detail. Here you can see just how robust the client information can be. As you can see, you've got your basic client information, you've got your client contacts, but in a glance, you can see exactly where you stand with this client. They've got one pending proposal. They've accepted about $201,000 worth of proposals. The jobs have about that much budget. They've paid this much to date, and this is what they have remaining. And this was just by clicking. Now, this often does bring up the question of access. Will all my employees have access to all of this information? Well, the simple answer is no. You, as the primary sort of key holder to PASconcept, will determine how much or how little any one of your employees can see. We've got some companies that have employees that simply go into PASconcept to enter time, and that's about it. Others that are project managers that can go in, enter time, look at jobs, but don't see any of the financial information associated to the jobs. So really, that's one of the most dynamic and robust areas of PASconcept. So now that we've completed the clients area, let's migrate over to the next stage in our life cycle, which is the opportunities. Here you can view essentially and manage any leads that you might have. It's essentially your business development area of PASconcept. We've made this to work for both public and private sector opportunities. We've had a series of different views, one of which is the list view, which is the one that you see in front of you. The other is a Kanban view. If you're familiar with programs like Monday.com or Trello, or even Jira, these work in a Kanban view in that each one of the entities, in this case opportunities, are cards that can be dragged from one status to another. Beyond that, you also have the ability to filter this list in any way that you'd like. You can add notes to opportunities, you can add tags, you can assign opportunities to specific employees so that they can follow through with them. Essentially, the goal here is to ensure that nothing that comes by your door ever falls through the cracks, that everything is tended to, and that you keep those ambers of potential work flowing and alive. This is what the opportunities list looks like. One of the most important and interesting areas of this is our dynamic filter. At the very top, you'll see a series of information: opportunities, proposals, proposal rate, awarded rate. Essentially here, at a glance, you can see of your opportunities, how many of them have been matured to the point where a proposal is possible. And of those that proposals were generated for, how many of them have been awarded? What's really great is that this dashboard that you see up top is entirely dependent on the filter that you place. So if I wanted to change, for example, the date range, if it was, instead of all years, just for this last year, or this quarter, or even last month, this would show me only the information pertinent to that date range. Or if I wanted to see it for a specific client, I could filter it as well, and I'd get new numbers based on that specific filter. This makes things much easier, as well as when it comes to your filters, it allows you to attack those opportunities in a way that's advantageous to your company to try and guarantee as large a percentage of success towards those opportunities. Now, of course, one of the key metrics of success for any opportunity is the ability for it to mature to the point where a proposal can be sent out. So say, for example, you don't often have the ability to send a proposal the minute you have that first phone call or you receive that first email from a client, because you might need more information. Oftentimes clients don't know what you need to be able to give them a quote. So here you can enter and start to generate that information. And once you've collected enough, there are two ways that you can generate a proposal. You can either convert any one of these lines into a proposal, or you can create a proposal from scratch. And that brings us to our next big step in the cycle, the proposals. So here, this is perhaps one of the most powerful areas of PASconcept, whereas the others are robust and can contain a lot of information. This one is one of the first where you really start to see your time being utilized in an efficient fashion. To generate a proposal is simply a matter of clicks. Right now, we have a proposal wizard, which is essentially what you see inside this little window, which takes you through a series of steps. You have your client information, project information. You can enter your fees and scopes, your payment schedule, terms and conditions, attachments, if necessary, and of course, your preview and your ability to send. What makes this whole process really simple is that what we've done is essentially made smarter the traditional way of generating proposals. Many people, and probably yourselves included, what you do when you get a proposal is that you start looking at older proposals or templates and you start piecemealing a new proposal together, or you utilize a template and then you start sort of cutting and modifying it to fit your needs. Here, what we've done is we've categorized and cataloged that process. So as you go through the steps, you, in your basic info step, have the ability to choose a template. That template populates literally every other section of this wizard, and now all you have to do is observe and modify as necessary. What's really great is that it never puts into jeopardy your original source catalog. That stays, that remains until you choose to change it. Beyond that, all of the proposals that are sent out through PASconcept are what we call smart proposals. They give you, the company, a lot of additional information. For example, if you were to send a client a proposal today, you'd be able to see, one, how many times it's been sent to that client, and two, how many times that client has seen that proposal. That really makes your process a little easier when it comes to following up or negotiating with that client. Say, for example, you view that the proposal that was sent today has been seen by your client 16 times. Over the course of a day, they've seen it 16 times. If when you're following up, you call them and they say, well, listen, it's been a busy day. I just haven't had the chance to see it, haven't even looked at it. Well, it gives you a little bit of an idea of how you should potentially move forward with managing that client. It also allows you to mitigate expectations when it's potentially a very pivotal or critical project for yourself. The same element, as powerful as it is also available in the invoices within PASconcept. When you send an invoice, you're able to see how many times it's been sent, when it's been sent, but most importantly, how many times that client has seen it. So let's dive into a little bit of the detail with your proposals. Very similar to the opportunities, you've got very familiar things. We try and keep a very familiar language throughout PASconcept visually. The first thing you'll notice is this dynamic summary right along the top, much like the one in opportunities. If you change the filter, these figures will change. Below that, you can see the number for any proposal, the date it was created, the name of the project and the client, the type of job, as well as its current status. This is the insights. This area at the far right, you can see the date in which this proposal was originally sent, how many times it was sent, and how many times it was seen. Here, you get to see the final step of the proposal wizard. You've got your clients, you've got your basic info, fee and scope, payments, terms and conditions, attachments, the optional step, and of course your ability to preview that full proposal. By the time you get done entering all these things, which can be done in an instant with that selection of a template process, you get to review and see and make sure that everything is copacetic before sending it off to a client. Now, after you send it, what you've got is the step of proposal acceptance and negotiating, ideally more accepting than negotiating. But here, like I mentioned, you have a huge amount of advantages, not just in the client tracking, but also in the way that the client accepts that proposal. Accepting a proposal triggers a series of other things. But before that proposal is ever accepted, if negotiating is done, you wouldn't have to resend that proposal off to a client. Say, the client is very happy with the work being done, but would like to make a change, like to add an additional service. Perfect. You can make that modification and simply tell the client, if you have them on the phone, for example, hey, go ahead and refresh that page and you'll see the changes we were talking about. So they can go ahead and refresh the page and they'd see those changes. They can then accept right in that moment. Accepting a proposal can be done in one of two ways. Either one, you click on this green accept button, which allows a little pop-up to come up and they can go ahead and sign it digitally with their mouse, or they can scan that QR code. Each proposal comes with a unique QR code. And once they scan it on their phone, they'd be able to sign it with their finger. Now, I mentioned that, there could be a series of triggers that occur when a job is accepted, when a proposal is accepted, and those include the following. If, as part of the payment schedule for this proposal, you said, well, we're going to need a certain amount due up front, whether it's a mobilization fee, a deposit, or what have you, immediately that invoice is generated. Inside PASconcept, that job is created, as well as all the other invoices necessary. That first invoice is then sent out to your client. Your client, if they accepted through this page, would be redirected directly to that page where they can then pay for that first invoice. All these things, which traditionally would be part of the burden of your administrative staff, is taken care of not even by an action that you've done, but by an action that your client has done, essentially and effectively having them work for you. So once that's complete, here you have an example of the proposal and what that proposal page looks like. At the bottom, you can see that accept button. You can see the QR code. At the very top, we allow for, if they'd like to have a PDF copy or they'd like to print it, that's always an option as well as a small menu which allows them to hop through the different areas of the proposal. If your proposal is very short, maybe that's not as relevant, but some proposals, and some of the companies that utilize PASconcept oftentimes can have very long proposals, and this has always been something really helpful. Now, the next step, once the next part of the cycle, once that job is open, once that proposal is accepted, this is where the fun really starts, and this is essentially your job management. If we were to divide PASconcept into chunks, this is absolutely the lion's share. This is always one of the most critical parts for any company, and one of the largest areas of PASconcept, and in fact the one where the most number of employees and users interact. Here in PASconcept, not only do you have a robust and dynamic job list, you can view your budget tracking, your invoicing. You can even view your job list in many different ways. And then when you dive into the job detail, you're able to see essentially any and all individual bits of information which might be relevant or helpful to you as the job progresses, or even key moments that you'd like to track and ensure that you have captured throughout the life cycle of that project. Let's go ahead and take a little bit more of a detailed view. So this is the standard job list view. Now, right now, I'm viewing it as though I were an employee, a standard employee, one that might not necessarily down here have access to very specific per job information. Now, I have, say for example, I'm a project manager. I've got access to view more universal information, but perhaps not a per job information with this image that I've captured here. However, you'll notice down here you've got these percentages. In this case, with the Smith residence, we've got a 30% and a 38%. Essentially, what this is telling me as a user is that for this project, of the invoices that have been sent, 30% of them have been paid. Excuse me. Now, underneath, I get to see how much of the budget is used. As the project progresses, I can see that I've utilized, or the company has utilized 38 or consumed 38% of the budget for this project. You can see those figures change from project to project, and you can even see that grow as you move forward. Beyond that, you can also see the statuses, you can see the job name, the type of job, essentially putting all these things easily and readily accessible for your users. Now, this also has multiple different views associated to it. If, say, for example, you didn't necessarily just want to view a list of jobs, but wanted to see it on a timeline, if you will, you can always click on the Gantt chart view, which will show you approximately based on the dates entered by your project managers, the planned start date, the planned end date. If you were to open up the planned task, you could see how those planned start date and planned end dates relate to the actual start time and actual end times of your project. So you can see how close to accurate you were on those. Here you can see all the individual jobs as well. And you can always modify this view to be by week, by month, or whatever you feel is most relevant for you and your company. The other view, or one of the other views available for the job list, is a map view. Here you can see physically where your projects are located. Here you can view those projects that are not in progress, those that are in progress, and those that fall under a different status like on hold or completed or what have you. Additionally, this is made even more rich with a connection that we have with Google Maps, which allows you to, if you were to hover over any one of the projects, show you the Google Street View and, of course, link you to a map if you wanted to, say, get it directions or what have you to the property. Additionally, clicking on this top link, much like clicking on either this number or clicking on this number as well, will take you to the job detail. Now, I'm sure you guys have noticed up until this point that all the entities within PASconcept work similar to a binder, right? You've got a binder, and that binder might have a series of different tabs. The same is true here. We've got our job info, we've got scope, we've got billing, we've got employees, we've got proposals associated to this job, expenses, so on and so forth. This breakdown of a project into its specific subsets makes navigating the system very easy and makes collecting and finding the information that you need even easier. Recently, we partnered with eStated, which is a company that provides additional property information to make this area even more robust. Here, this is just your standard basic, project information. But at the very top, we've got the second tab within job info called property detail. Here, by fetching property data, you'd be able to see much more information related to the property. Of course, you'd have to enter the address, but once you fetch that data, you're able to see owner information, the legal description of the property, land parcel information, structural information, when that property was made, how many beds, what type of walls it has. Even it's wild the amount of information that you can easily collect just by hitting a click. And of course, you can also see valuation information or the boundary coordinates of the property. It's something that we found to be really, really exciting and really helpful as you progress throughout the project. The other major area within the job detail is your scope. Here, you can see a full breakdown of the entirety of your project in just one view. Here, we've got a three-tiered project. In this case, the Spellman Apothecary. This is the project overall. These in bold would be the phases, and within those phases, the tasks associated to those phases. Here you could see a series of information. You could see the planned start date, the planned end date, what the progress percentage towards completion has been for any one of those individual steps, whether the project as a whole, the phase, or even the task. Beyond that, your project managers can enter a planned start date and a planned end date, and even assign employees to these. And as those employees start to enter time, you're able to see the start date and the end date. Now, in the event that any of them have been completed, this would go from blue to black. Blue is an estimated end date based on your start date and the amount of work remaining. This is a figure that PASconcept provides you using a series of calculations on the back end. If you were to continue working at the rate at which you've worked on it thus far, you would be complete by this date. This view is also available in a Gantt chart view, so you could see it in a timeline. You could see how these phases interact with each other based on your originally estimated time frames. Now, beyond that, as a whole, that's your job and project management area. There are other elements as well, but for the benefit of time, and I want to be respectful of your time. We're getting close to the 3:40 mark. If you are interested in exploring any of the other job-related areas, feel free to reach out to DDS CAD. Like I said, we'd love to meet with you guys to talk about how PASconcept would be right for your company or could be right for your company. But for the sake of time, let's move forward to employee time activity. Here, your managers or your administrators are able to assign time to your employees. That is to say, within a job, you're able to say, employee A, you're going to be doing 12 hours of this specific task, or what have you. And that process is made very simple in PASconcept. In fact, it would even give you additional information such as how much experience that employee has with doing this type of task, what this employee's efficiency is with doing this type of task before even assigning it. Now, once that time is assigned, not only do your employees get notified that time has been added to them, but it also enables their ability to enter time for those projects. So this, going back to that job detail view, is the Employees tab. Here you get to see your individual employees, and you're able to add additional tasks to them, and you can see a roll-up of approximately how many hours you've assigned and how many they've worked so far. Now, from your employee's perspective, entering time is very simple. It's a traditional timesheet. We've made it a little bit easier for employees to navigate and to use than your standard cold, non-dynamic timesheet, but essentially it works the same way. You're able to click on a cell to add time. If there's a job that's not on this list and you'd like to add it, it's very simple. You click on that green button up here, you can add that job to this list. Additionally, two of the perhaps most interesting options, one, View Recent will automatically populate all of the rows that you've had in previous pay periods. So say, for example, you've got a new pay period and there are no jobs listed here. You can hit view recent and all of those lines would populate. Obviously not the time, but the rows themselves. The same is true for view assigned. By clicking view assigned, this area will automatically make visible all the jobs for which you are assigned, as well as any tasks for which you as an employee are assigned. Um, Now, beyond that, of course, the next step being your subconsultant management. This is where you can start to enter any, subconsultants that you might have associated to a job. These would be your expenses associated to the job, or at least a subset of those expenses. But even asking for RFPs and RFQs can all be done from inside PASconcept. Much like your client folio, your client area. There's one for vendors and for subconsultants as well. From PASconcept, you can define the scope of a job and send it to multiple subconsultants or subcontractors and have them submit to you directly their quotes for those individual projects. And from that, you can easily select them as well. It makes that process very seamless, very time efficient, and as such, very cost efficient. Um, Beyond that, as well, you also have invoicing and payments. Here, you can easily view, generate, submit your invoices to your clients. Additionally, you can integrate different payment portals, Venmo, authorize.net, which allows credit card, e-check, ACH, and others, as well as PayPal, which allows you to pay through credit card. Any payment made through those payment portals with your through your invoices will be automatically entered into PASconcept. There's no need for a secondary action to go in and enter payment. They're already tracked through that means. Um, Now here you get to see what your billing area of PASconcept looks like. This is for a very specific job. You get to go in, you get to see those invoices. This is what I was referring to earlier, where you could see the insights associated to your invoices. This is the day it was sent, how many times it was sent, how many times it was viewed. And of course, just below, you could see the payments that were received for this specific job. You can even manage billing and payments and invoicing as a whole through different areas in PASconcept, which allows you to focus primarily on that. If you have a department, which is your accounts payable, accounts receivable department or what have you, you can absolutely give them access to just that. They won't even need to go into the jobs. They could just see the invoices that are there, that are out, that are needing to be paid, so on and so forth. Now, beyond that as well, this is what the invoices look like when they're sent from PASconcept. At the top, your client will still have access to view their jobs and other invoices, and can even send a request to you for another job if they have the need. Here you can see who it's billed to, the project information, and of course, the Pay Here button. Now, this is a simple invoice. We know from experience that not every company uses simple invoices. Some of you use progressive invoices, which bill based on a percentage of completion towards any one specific phase or task, or even a job as a whole. So this next invoice is just that. This process is made very simple in PASconcept because you already have the percentage of completion, and it's just a matter of clicking an update button to generate that new invoice based on what you've previously billed and what you'll be billing towards in the future. Beyond that, of course, we've got essentially the full life cycle of your project. Now, granted, you might be sitting there, you might be saying, well, this is all well and good for companies that follow this life cycle. It seems perfect, that's great, but my company is a little different. Well, the one good news that I have for you is that not only are we the vendors of PASconcept, but we are also the developers and makers of PASconcept. If you have a specific need, we're more than happy to tailor to it, to make changes to the system to accommodate for you. In fact, we've done that already for many different types of companies that focus primarily on public projects or projects without phases at all, projects with unique estimations, be them physical or service based, inspection companies, survey companies. We've made modifications in the past and are more than happy to make modifications with your company in mind. And essentially, our goal is always going from these pain points and turning those pain points into points of opportunity. Whether that's something that's going to save you time or money, or be able to increase things that are already strengths within your company and make them even stronger, or even just providing you with the data that you as a principal or a company owner should have. That is our main focus. Um, and well, without further ado, I'm going to skip over this area. Just to let you know, we do have a series of companies that are more than happy to sort of get inquired about their experience with PASconcept. We are trusted by a number of different companies, but I want to hear a little bit more from you. So we're going to go right into the questions section of this presentation. Now, Alan, I don't know if anyone sent over any questions. If they have, would you be able to sort of let me know, and
Yeah,
we'll burn through those questions.
absolutely. So we do have a couple here.
Perfect.
Thank you for the great presentation. Really, really interesting stuff.
Well, we
Hopefully
try
you
our
guys are
best.
all enjoying. Okay, so the first question I had here is the software required to be installed on a computer?
Oh, that's an excellent question. No, it is not. You never need to download or install anything with PASconcept. You simply go to a URL and you log in. It's that simple.
Perfect. Next question I had here, do we receive training on how to use this software?
In fact, you do. Yes, with every license. Say, for example, if you got a year-long subscription, your training and your implementation are included. These are usually the most, gosh, the most irksome part of any, taking on a new system. Oh gosh, it's going to take forever to get started, or oh man, the training is going to be so hard. Well, with PASconcept, we make that process really simple, and any pain, including the pain of payment, is alleviated with us. We always feel that that process is one that falls under sort of our jurisdiction. So the very first thing we do is we sit with you, we hear and learn about your company. To make any modifications or any customizations necessary. And then at that point, we collect any and all information that you've got and we populate it within PASconcept. And then we get training started. Oftentimes, or at least I myself have been a little taken aback at how quickly or how easily different companies are able to adopt PASconcept when I hear their stories about them adopting other pieces of software. And I think a lot of that has to do with our particularly spectacular um, sort of design team that has really tried to make the system one, modern, simple to understand, and as intuitive as possible. The minute you play around with PASconcept a little bit, you start to understand that visual language and you start to be able to find things without even necessarily referencing the training. You just find the elements because you know how the system works essentially.
Great. Um, Kind of goes along with that, and I believe you
Mhm.
kind of touched on it, but who can help me set up PASconcept for my company?
Oh, perfect. So when it comes to, so there, I'll sort of divide that into two sections. So first, we absolutely provide hands-on implementation and training, obviously. The setup process is something that, should you choose, can be done through us, but the system is made to a point where anyone can set up a new company rather easily by following just the first step guide. Now, beyond that, because it was the first part of the question, and I think it's an important one to hit on, um, is in regards to help. And I don't just want to think of that as the first steps, but just general help, right? What if you have a question? What if you get stuck? What if there's a roadblock? Well, with PASconcept, much like any other contemporary modern software worth its salt, we have a help desk available to you. On every single page in PASconcept, on the bottom right-hand corner, there's a little floating green button, which is your help button. You can always click there to reach out to our staff, which is always ready and waiting to respond and provide any assistance necessary.
Okay, that's great. Okay, I did have one come in here. What is the
Mhm.
cost per year and how many users per license?
Oh, that's great. Yeah, that's something that we didn't touch. It really can vary from company to company, although the variance isn't great. The standard pricing for PASconcept is $40 per user, and that's $40 per user per month. So depending on the size of your company, it may increase or decrease as necessary or as needed, based on your user count. Now that said, that is the per month. Excuse me. That's the per month pricing. If by chance you are open to subscribing for a year instead of a month, you get 20% off of that price. So you would only be paying a fraction of that per user over the course of that year. And of course, the
Okay,
year-long subscription includes all the implementation and training free of charge.
great. All
Mhm.
right. Okay. Can we see a report of one specific employee for hours dedicated to each project?
Absolutely. Yeah. Administrators or anyone that you deem that should have access to other employees' information would be able to go in and see a breakdown of how many hours that employee spent on a project, or whether it's within a specific date range, or for a specific project, or for a specific type of project, or for a specific department. It's all data, and you have access to all of it.
Okay, perfect. Just a couple more here. Can I check project information from outside of my office?
Absolutely. Yeah. So, say you're going to be spending 2 weeks in the Bahamas, but you're one of these, folks that likes to disconnect, but not totally disconnect. You can always open up your laptop, go to PASconcept.com, and it's exactly as if you were logging in from your office. This was
Great.
something that actually was just a nice thing to have before 2020, but when the events of 2020 occurred and the world was invariably changed, it made a huge difference for a number of companies to be able to even work and have their employee base work from home and access that information and decrease, potential exposure and such in a moment's call, because they had this information available to them, and any of their employees would be able to access it from their homes. Now, that said, should you be a company who does not want their employees to access company information outside of company hours, we entirely understand that too. Part of what you can set up with PASconcept is IP restriction. So, say for example, you were a company that did not particularly want their employees to enter PASconcept from their home or from their personal devices. Well, if that employee or that person is trying to access PASconcept from an IP that is not the one associated to your office, they would be blocked from doing so. So the option is yours. We are a dynamic and flexible program, and here for at your disposal.
Okay, great. Okay, another one here. What can we attach to our projects? Documents, plans, pictures, maps, I guess. What can we attach?
Honestly, any file, no, that's a great question. Any file that can live on your computer, you can upload to those projects. There's no limit. Um, you as a user can define a limit per size, but even then, that's arbitrary. Anything that you want to upload that is a file on your computer, you can upload to those projects. In fact, we categorize accordingly. So yeah, there's really no limit as to what you can upload and attach to projects, proposals, clients, whether it's a PDF, an image, a CAD file, yeah, a video, literally anything.
All right, and I do think you mentioned part of this at some point, but the um, limit of storage, I guess.
Oh yeah,
I believe you said it was 100 gigs. Is that right?
that's correct. You get by default 100 gigs with every license. As you start to consume that, and as you get close to completely consuming that, which we've very few companies that have even gotten anywhere near that, because usually files are relatively small, whether it's Excel or Word or PDF or what have you. It would take a very long time to reach 100 gigs. But with the few companies that have, we simply talk to them about what their estimated needs would be, and we're able to increase that as they need.
Okay, great. I think that's all I had for questions. So if you
Wonderful.
don't mind, we can go ahead and jump over to that next slide.
You got it.
All right, and so I want to thank Matt for being here with us today. It was really awesome presentation, and thank you all for being here and checking this out as well. Yeah, be on the lookout for future webinars. As you can see on the screen here, if there's anything that you'd like to reach out to us about, maybe to set up a demo or to find out more, maybe set up something one-on-one, you can definitely give us a call here at the office at 305-445-6480, or shoot us an email at info@ddscad.com. And again, for any additional questions, pricing, training, support, any of the things that we offer here at DDSCAD, just go ahead and reach out to us. All right. Thank you all so much.
Well, perfect, Alan. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure, and thank you everyone for taking some time out of your busy Thursdays to hear a little bit about PASconcept. I look forward to hearing from each of you. All right. Enjoy, everyone.
A good one.